My ex said, "You'll regret leaving me." He predicted I'd be miserable. This New Year's, I'm celebrating my promotion, new apartment, an amazing partner. He's still living with his mom at 35. Hey Reddit, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. You'll come crawling back. Those were the last words Derek said to me as I loaded the final box into my car 3 years ago. He stood in the doorway of our apartment. Well, his apartment now. Arms crossed, that smug expression I'd grown to hate plastered across his face. I'm 26. 3 years ago, I was 23 and convinced I'd found my person. Now I'm standing in my own apartment, champagne in hand, surrounded by people who actually give a damn about me. But let me back up just enough so this makes sense. When I met Derek, I was 20. He was 32. Looking back, yeah, the age gap should have been a red flag the size of a parade banner. But I was young, impressively stupid, and he had this way of making me feel like I was mature beyond my years. Special. Different from other people my age. You're not like other guys in their 20s, he'd say. You actually have your head on straight. What he really meant was, you're easier to control than someone my own age who'd call out my nonsense. The relationship started normal enough. We'd go out. He'd pay for everything, and I felt taken care of. Protected. He had a decent job in sales, a nice car, and seemed stable. My friends had their concerns about the age difference, but I brushed them off. He treats me really well, I'd insist. And he did. At first. The changes came gradually. So gradually, I didn't notice them happening until I was already deep in it. First, it was small suggestions about my appearance. Then comments about my friends being immature and bad influences. Then it was about how I spent my free time. Why do you need to go out with them? I thought we were spending tonight together. I started declining invitations. Stopped posting on social media as much because he'd get weird about who liked my photos. Turned down a promotion at work because it would have meant longer hours, and he said our relationship should come first. I just want to spend time with you, he'd say, and somehow I'd end up apologizing for wanting things outside of him. 2 years in, I moved into his place. It made financial sense. I could save money. We were serious, and honestly, I was tired of the guilt trips every time I went home to my own apartment. That's when things really shifted. Living together meant he knew where I was all the time. Meant he could monitor who I talked to. Meant every single decision I made was suddenly up for debate. Why did you buy that? We need to save money. Why are you texting your brother so much? Is something wrong? You seem distant lately. Are you losing interest in us? The questions felt caring at first, like he was invested. Then they felt constant, suffocating, like I couldn't breathe without filing a report. I started working late just to have space. Started taking the long way home. Started feeling relieved when he had plans without me. That's not normal. That's not love. But I didn't see it yet. The breaking point came on a random Tuesday. Nothing dramatic or explosive. Just a moment of absolute clarity that knocked the wind out of me. We were sitting on the couch. He was scrolling through his phone, making occasional comments about posts he saw. I was reading an article about career development, thinking about the promotion I'd turned down 2 years earlier. What are you reading? He asked without looking up. Just an article about project management certifications. He glanced over. Why? I don't know. Just interested. You thinking about changing jobs or something? The way he said it, suspicious, almost accusatory, made something click into place. I wasn't allowed to be interested in things without justification. Wasn't allowed to explore ideas without his approval. Wasn't allowed to exist as a separate person with my own thoughts and goals. Maybe, I said. He put his phone down. We should talk about that before you make any decisions. Big changes affect both of us. And there it was. The thing I'd been ignoring for 3 years. I didn't have autonomy. I had permission, and I was done asking for it. I think we need to break up, I said. The words came out calm. Measured, like I was commenting on the weather. He laughed. Actually laughed. Where's this coming from? I'm not happy. You seemed fine this morning. I haven't been fine in a long time. The laughter stopped. His expression hardened into something I'd seen before, but never directed at me with this intensity. So what? You're just going to throw away 3 years over nothing? It's not nothing. What is it then? What's your big complaint? I could have listed everything. Every comment, every guilt trip, every time I'd shrunk myself to make him comfortable. But I was so tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of defending my right to feel what I felt. I just need to go. Go where? This is my apartment. You have nowhere to go. I'll figure it out. With what money? You barely make anything. You think you can afford your own place. And that's when I realized he'd been saying the quiet part out loud for years. He'd convinced me to save money by moving in with him, then used my financial dependence as leverage. I'd given up career advancement for our relationship, and now he was throwing my lower salary in my face. I'll stay with my brother until I find something. Your brother who's barely making rent himself? Good luck with that. Better than staying here. His whole demeanor shifted. The anger melted into something worse, pity mixed with certainty. You'll regret this, he said softly. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. You'll come crawling back. I started packing that night. Called my brother, who said I could crash on his couch as long as I needed. Derek watched me from the bedroom doorway, occasionally making predictions about my imminent failure. You won't last a month. You'll realize how good you had it. No one else is going to put up with you. I loaded my car in 3 trips. Didn't have much. Most of the furniture was his, and I didn't want to fight over belongings. Just wanted out. As I put the last box in my trunk, he delivered his final assessment. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. You'll come crawling back. I drove away without responding. The first few months were genuinely rough. My brother's couch was lumpy and his apartment was small. I picked up extra shifts at work, ate a lot of ramen, questioned my decision approximately 400 times. But something weird happened. The further I got from Derek, the lighter I felt. Like I'd been carrying weight I didn't realize was there until it was gone. I started saying yes to things again. Went out with friends without checking in with anyone. Made decisions about my own life without running them past a committee of one. Applied for jobs that actually interested me. 6 months after leaving, I got an interview for a position I was barely qualified for. Project coordinator at a tech company. Better pay, better benefits, room for advancement. I almost didn't apply. Could hear Derek's voice in my head. You're not ready for that. You need more experience. You're setting yourself up for failure. But I applied anyway. And somehow I got it. The job was hard at first. Steep learning curve, lots to absorb. But I had this thing I'd forgotten existed, confidence. Or maybe just the absence of someone constantly predicting my failure. Same result either way. I moved into my own apartment a year after the breakup. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. My name on the lease. My furniture. My rules. Around that time, I met Qley. We matched on an app. He was 28, worked in graphic design, had a dog named Potato. His profile made me laugh, which felt like a good start. Our first date was coffee. Simple, low pressure. He asked about my interests and actually listened to the answers. Didn't interrupt or redirect the conversation back to himself. Didn't make me feel like I needed to perform or prove anything. What do you do for fun? He asked. I realized I didn't have a great answer. I'd spent so long not having fun that I'd forgotten what I actually enjoyed. I'm kind of figuring that out, I admitted. That's fair. What did you used to like doing? Before life got complicated. So I told him about photography. How I used to take pictures constantly, but stopped somewhere along the way. How I'd sold my camera during a tight financial period and never replaced it. The next time we met up, he brought me a disposable camera. It's not fancy, he said, but you can start figuring out if you still like it without dropping serious money on equipment. That's when I knew he was different. He wasn't trying to fix me or save me or mold me into something. He was just making space for me to figure out who I was. We took things slow. I was pretty upfront about coming out of something difficult. He didn't push for details, just said he understood and we could move at whatever pace felt right. 8 months in, I got promoted to senior project coordinator. Better title, significant raise, more responsibility. I was terrified I'd screw it up. "You're going to be great at this," Qley said when I told him. "How do you know?" "Because you're already great at the job you have now. This is just more of that." Simple logic. But coming from someone who actually believed in me, it landed differently than my own anxious brain spiraling. The promotion stuck. I was good at it. Turned out I was capable of a lot more than I'd given myself credit for. Meanwhile, through mutual friends and social media algorithms that love drama, I caught occasional updates about Derek's life. Still at the same sales job. Still in the same apartment. According to a mutual acquaintance, he'd had a string of short relationships that never went anywhere. Then, about 6 months ago, I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved back in with his mother. Something about financial troubles and needing to reset. I didn't feel vindicated exactly. More just neutral. His life was his life. Mine was mine. They diverged completely. Qley and I moved in together this past summer. Got a 2-bedroom in a nicer part of town. Adopted a second dog. Started talking about long-term plans without either of us panicking. Which brings us to now. New Year's Eve. We're hosting a small gathering at our place. Friends, co-workers, Qley's brother, and his wife. Maybe 15 people total. I'm in the kitchen refilling ice when my phone buzzes. Message from a number I don't have saved, but I recognize it immediately. "Hey, hope you're doing well. Wanted to reach out and see how you're doing. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime and catch up." Derek. 3 years of silence, and he chooses tonight. I show Qley the message. He reads it and raises an eyebrow. "You want to respond?" "Not even a little bit." Works for me. I delete the message without responding. Not out of anger or spite. Just complete disinterest in reopening a chapter that ended exactly when it should have. Qley hands me a champagne flute. "You good?" "Yeah, really good actually." At midnight, we're all crowded in the living room. Countdown on TV, everyone shouting numbers, that chaotic energy of a year ending and a new one starting. Qley kisses me as the ball drops. "Happy New Year." "Happy New Year." Around us, people are cheering and hugging and making optimistic proclamations about the year ahead. I look around the apartment, our apartment, at the life I've built from scratch after thinking I had nothing. My phone buzzes again. Another message from Derek's number. "I saw you got promoted. Congrats. I always knew you had potential." The audacity is almost funny. He knew I had potential but spent 3 years convincing me I didn't. Predicted I'd fail on my own, but now wants credit for my success. I don't respond to this one either. Just set my phone face down on the counter and rejoin the party. Later, after everyone's gone home and we're cleaning up, Qley asks if the messages bothered me. Not really. More like proof that leaving was the right call. He say anything interesting? Just some revisionist history about always believing in me. Qley snorts. That's rich. Yeah. Funny thing is, 3 years ago that probably would have worked on me. Would have made me second guess everything. And now I know the difference between someone who says they believe in you and someone who actually does. He pulls me into a hug. We stand there in our kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of a life that Derek swore I couldn't build without him. I think about that moment on his couch 3 years ago, reading an article and realizing I needed permission to be curious, to want things, to exist as my own person. I think about his predictions, the crawling back, the regret, the inevitable failure he was so certain would prove him right. And I think about where I am now, the promotion, the apartment, the relationship built on actual respect instead of control, the friends I reconnected with, the hobbies I rediscovered, the version of myself I'd forgotten existed. Derek was right about one thing. I did regret something. I regretted staying as long as I did. Regretted the years I gave him that I could have spent building this life sooner. But leaving him, that's the best decision I've ever made. My phone buzzes one more time. I don't check it. Don't need to. Whatever he has to say, whatever narrative he's constructed about our relationship or my success or his role in any of it, doesn't matter. I'm not the 23-year-old who needed external validation to make choices, who shrunk himself to fit someone else's comfort. who thought love was supposed to feel like constantly proving yourself worthy of basic respect. I'm just someone who learned the hard way that you can't build a life with someone who's invested in keeping you small. And sometimes the biggest act of self-respect is just walking away. The champagne's wearing off. Kai's loading the dishwasher. The dogs are passed out on the couch. It's quiet and normal and exactly what I needed all along. A life that feels like mine. If you've been in a situation where someone tried to convince you that you couldn't survive without them, and you had to walk away to prove them wrong, you know that feeling of relief mixed with disbelief at how long you stayed. Sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving. It's realizing you should have left sooner. If you want more stories about figuring out what you actually deserve, you can subscribe. But for now, I'm just going to stand in my kitchen and appreciate how good it feels to be wrong about your own limitations.